Hi, all. I'm really excited today because I have a fabulous connector with me, Amy Vaughn, and I'm going to let her jump in and share a little bit about what your background is and what you do.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me, Rachel. It's great to be here. My name is Amy Vaughn, and I am the owner and chief empowerment officer of Together Digital, which, just to clarify, still stands for CEO. So I do manage all the day to day operations of this organization, which is a national network and community for women who work in digital marketing, advertising, and technology. I formerly was a creative director who worked in that space of digital marketing and advertising for nearly 15 years before joining the group.
So, what made you want to join the group and then eventually take over? Were you seeking something in the digital space that you weren't getting?
Yeah, it's a great question. So funny story. I'm not the founder of the organization. Somebody once so gracefully called me a refounder, which I do appreciate because there's something interesting that happens when you come into entrepreneurship quite by accident and not by, really kind of starting something of your own.
Mhm.
It feels a little strange, right? At least it did for me. But then it didn't. It kind of actually felt natural and like of a no duh.
Mhm.
Um, but what was so inspiring to me about the community and what drew me in at first was actually the opposite of what the founder's experience was. So the founder was from Columbus. She was had been in agencies, but also became an agency owner and founder. But she'd kind of experienced some sexual harassment and discrimination in the workplace. A boss had taken her to lunch, a much beloved boss had taken her to lunch one day and told her he couldn't be alone in a room with her anymore because he didn't know what would happen.
Oh my gosh.
Barf, right?
Horrible.
I mean, just so heart-wrenching and like just yeah. I mean, the hard thing is it's just like in 2016. So a lot of women, it's like right at
Mhm.
the beginning of that hashtag Me Too
Yeah.
movement. And where we all just started becoming more comfortable with speaking aloud these things that had happened to us. And maybe I had been in situations somewhat similar where they were awkward, but never
Mhm.
that awkward. Thank
Right.
goodness. I had a lot of great male allies and champions throughout my career. In fact, one of those great allies, GT Anderson, had sent me to what was called the 3% conference back in 2012. And 3%, it was called that because at the time, only 3% of creative directors in the entire advertising industry were women. And
That is
what's
a wild
wild,
statistic.
right? And I didn't even know it at the time. I was working on cow brands. So Biore, Jergens, and Curel, namely women's beauty products, John Frieda hair care. And so I really didn't recognize the waters that I was swimming in. I didn't know what an anomaly I was, being a 30 something year old female creative director. I didn't know that I was, one of 3%. But when we're 80% of the buying power, it just makes you wonder, like, why? Why is it that, such a small percentage of the people, when such a large percentage of the population is doing the buying, why such a small percentage doing the message making? And it really opened my eyes to the disparities for women. When you look at the landscape of digital marketing and advertising, or just marketing in general, you will see a lot of women.
Mhm.
But as soon as you get towards that C suite, as soon as you get above middle management level, they're gone. And I
Yeah.
really felt that again, not just as a woman, but actually as a mother. So it
Mhm.
was about 2017, 2018. Um, well, no, I'm sorry, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. It was 2013. I'd had my daughter,
Mhm.
and that was a big shift. All of a sudden, balancing ambition and motherhood. And then the founder found me through LinkedIn
Mhm.
um, in late 2016. So by then, my kiddo was 3 years old, and I had another kid on the way. And I'm thinking, this is going to be twice the work, another kid. And like, I'm already working, 50, 60 hours a week. I'm traveling a lot. I still
Mhm.
love the work that I do, but there's nobody else that's dealing with the things I'm dealing with. And so when I say the opposite of maybe what the founder was experiencing and what she was needing was, well, she needed the safe space to kind of talk about the sexual harassment and maybe some of the discrimination she dealt with. I was in need of just other women like me that were kind of balancing, the travel and the high demand work and clients, and then wanting to be in those spaces and wanting to continue to grow and thrive in my work, but then also want to show up and be there with my kids, right? And with my partner. And so for me, it was about finding connection with other women in my industry, because I also live and work in an area and a neighborhood that's relatively affluent and that has a lot of working moms, which is wonderful. And I honor and respect them because that is a full-time freaking job,
It
all
is.
stay-at-home parenthood. But it also, is one of those things where you can kind of feel like you're a little on the outside, right?
Mhm.
In the same way that they don't know always what to talk to me about, I don't know what to always talk to them about. And so I needed to find other women that I could speak about and speak to the things that I was dealing with at home and at work and really just show up whole.
Mhm.
And so I joined the community. She asked if I would help start the Cincinnati chapter. I had no reason to say yes. I'm working full time,
Your
raising a
kids
small
are
kid,
little.
6, 7 months pregnant. I'm like crazy thinking, yeah, sure, I'll help you start a chapter. But I didn't even hesitate, Rachel, because I knew again from the 3% conference that was started by Kat Gordon that I had attended that the statistics were not in our favor.
Mhm.
I knew from, the founder story that I needed that the other women were dealing with things that, I had fortunately had not had to face.
Mhm.
But I knew they were out there just because I wasn't facing them. And then I had my own experience. And so
Mhm.
really that's what drew me to the group. And then once we started having events and I found that safe space and I found those peers to almost work as mentors and guides, I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh my gosh, how could I ever go back to feeling like I'm doing this all alone?" So
Right.
it was really that power and that pull of community that drew me in. And I was never kind of a girly girl. I was always a tomboy growing up. So I was never in the cliques. I was never in a sorority in college. I went to art school. We didn't have sororities, you know?
Mhm.
And so I think it was great to find my people
Yeah.
and get that support that I
I think
hadn't had in the past.
I think that's part of why it drew me in for to be a part of Together Digital is you come into the space and in a lot of networking events, people are really superficial. It's how are
Mhm.
you doing? Oh, my business is doing great. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. It's never been better.
Yeah.
And then you come into Together Digital and
Mhm.
you have all these women who are like, I'm really struggling with this, this, and this. And they just open the door for that vulnerability to happen. And
Mhm.
because it's built into the culture, it allows people who are newer like myself to also feel comfortable coming in and being vulnerable and stating
Yeah.
the things that we need help with. And I think that builds your community to be even stronger.
Agreed. I mean, I think, because our founder opened up the space for vulnerability at the very beginning of the organization, it allotted for that. And then I think even more so with me coming in right before COVID and then taking over the day to day during COVID, shortly thereafter, it has really compounded our ability to maintain and hold space and compassion for
Mhm.
these women and I think show up differently than most networking groups. And I'm really proud of that. And I'm not bragging to say that we're better. I just think we just do things
Mhm.
differently. And I
Right.
think, now as the owner of the organization, it's very much something that I am very proud of and I protect
Mhm.
because, now that I am spending all my time with and as much time as I can with marginalized folks, I really want to continue to provide and protect that space because I realize how extra necessary it is having gone through the last 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
alongside our members because I'm in that group as well, right? I'm not just it's like what is it the men's warehouse guy always says? He's like, I'm not just the president,
Uh,
I'm also a member or whatever.
yes.
That is me, this group gave me so much. And so that's always the fun story that I like to tell
Mhm.
too to anybody that, is interested in the group is like when I joined, I didn't have ambitions of saying someday I will own and operate Together
Yeah.
Digital. No, I wanted to be a member and just get the benefits in the community and the connections and the learnings. But what it gave me was like leadership opportunities, speaking
Mhm.
opportunities, obviously the deeper, more meaningful connections and friendships. I found
Mhm.
people to hire, I found new vendors, I found new
Right.
clients. So while I was still on the agency side, it really grew me. But then the unexpected benefit was that one day I was walking down the hall of the national conference, and the founder pulls me aside and tells me that a member of the organization told her that, you've built something amazing here, which I mean, in 3 years' time, she really had,
Mhm.
grassroots level built up this amazing organization. And she says, you should run for Congress and you're in an important district. And, just saw that potential in her, right? And
Mhm.
did it. And, you know, she did it. She went and she ran. She didn't win. It wasn't necessarily even the strategy to win. I can go into all of that, but that's for another time.
Yeah.
But what was amazing is that, like, she saw that potential and she called upon her
Mhm.
for that. And that's the power of connections and network and people that trust and value you.
Mhm.
And those are the kinds of things that, like, I don't think women get called upon enough for,
Yeah.
in the workplace and otherwise. And then the same for me. I had said that I had wanted to run a company, and I said it to a boss, and the boss told me creatives can't run companies, like, straight to my
Oh my
face.
gosh.
Mhm.
Yeah, no.
It hurt. And then
Mhm.
I said, "Okay, cool. Thanks." And then I had lamented as much,
Mhm.
to the founder. And, she remembered that, but then also saw the ways in which I was organizing and structuring and managing my board at the time and was like, this person
Yeah,
knows what she's doing.
exactly,
And
and no one knows how to run a business at first. We all figure it out on the fly as we're
mhm.
starting our journeys. It's like anything else that you start and try.
Yep.
You learn as you try things. You fall on your face, you get up, and you try something different. Um, that's how it goes.
Absolutely. Yep. And so that was kind of it. She saw that potential in me and then trusted me enough to know, tap me on the shoulder and say, yeah, well, while I go run for Congress, how about you come over here and run this business?
Oh,
And
great.
so, yeah, started in 2019 in November, was partner after the first year and bought the business actually after the second year, which is just so wild. Like I wouldn't have thought when I joined, just as a member and a volunteer 5, 6 years
Mhm.
ago that this is where I would be. But again, um, she was so supportive. The community was so supportive. I'm not saying it was all sunshine and rainbows and easy breezy. Um, there was challenges and bumps in the road. Obviously, COVID was huge. There's still not always collaboration amongst women. There's still competition and there's still
Mhm.
challenges that we faced within our culture, that things that had to be smoothed out, lines I had to draw, values I had to define more strongly and articulate better. But ultimately, I really do feel like we're in such a good space
Mhm.
now, and I'm really, really excited, kind of for where we're headed and what we've created thus far.
No, I, as somebody who's been recently like taking part of that, I would say that I really can feel all the hard work that you've put in to create that safe space
Mhm.
and to make it flow and be more interactive. Now, I know you said that the original founder came in because of sexism in the workplace, and you were looking more for people who could help, that you could bounce ideas off of. What other challenges do you think that people are facing, women in digital marketing and advertising, that Together Digital addresses?
Yeah, I think the number one right now, unfortunately, is helping and supporting job seekers.
Mhm.
I was at another kind of extended collaborative, like cross, I guess, association
Mhm.
networking event last night where it was like logo soup on our promotional material. It was us and like I think probably 10 other organizations that support
Mhm.
different types of media type of groups. And it was a good mix of men and women. And it was amazing because for every 3 women that I talked to, 2 of them were currently looking for work because they had been laid off.
Wow.
So while the unemployment numbers across the board are looking up, I do believe within this industry in particular and
Mhm.
marketing, the numbers are down from an employment standpoint. And I mean, that's a confluence of budgets, that's a confluence of big companies taking marketing work from agencies to in-house, which is kind of just like an ebb and flow. This happens. This isn't anything new. It's something
Right.
that I've seen obviously time and time again over a decade and a half of being in the industry. I do think AI plays a part in it as well, because there are some things that it is creating efficiencies in. While it's not necessarily replacing jobs, it's creating efficiencies, and it's collapsing and consolidating certain roles. And they tend to be lower, more entry level and medium sized like roles or mid level roles, which is where a lot of the women sit, versus the higher level director level roles.
Right.
And then I'm also just seeing it take longer for them to land roles. And honestly, it's because they're not networking. If you are currently looking out for a job and you're just applying online, you are doing it wrong, my friends. You need to be networking. It's not just about what you know. I would go so far as to say it's not even about what you know. It's about who you know. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to call out names, but there are plenty of people out there who don't know squat. And somehow it seems like they have all the success in the world, and you wonder why.
Right.
It's because they've got the right connections. They know who they need to know to get them where they need to
Mhm.
get the money, to get the book published,
Right.
to get the press they need. And that's like, it's an immense privilege that we kind of don't necessarily keep at the front of our minds.
Mhm.
But it means so much. So job seekers is definitely something that, very early on from the beginning of the pandemic that we sort of, leaned in hard to. So we've done virtual job fairs in the past that have been very successful. We have a weekly job seekers peer circle group that meets every Thursday at noon Eastern. We have a number of job boards on our virtual community or online community where it's people that are posting the jobs. Typically are the people who know somebody or are the company that's hiring. We really prefer that. That way, again, like I said, it's who you know.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're just putting your email or you're just putting your resume out into the abyss, you
Mhm.
know?
Well, and I think to an extent it's always been who you know, but you could still get your resume viewed.
Yeah.
And now there's hundreds of applicants going in for
So
these,
flooded.
and you have AI like just checking through the resumes to see if you're pulling the correct
Yeah.
keywords. And it is a lot of noise, and so you have to know that person that can email you to the person hiring and say, "Hey, I really think you should check out this particular resume," because otherwise you have a very slim chance of coming through.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
And the recruiters themselves. I mean, I talk to a
yeah.
lot of and we work with a lot of recruiters too. And they're understaffed and they're overwhelmed because they're getting fewer job requisitions opened and they're getting 3 times as many applications like you said. That's another confluencing factor, right? Is like the remote and hybrid job work environment now. Whereas you used to have only local job applicants coming in, now you've
Mhm.
got people applying from all over the world for these
Right.
jobs. So yeah, it's highly competitive on top of that. So yeah, it's an uphill battle for women. So we don't, like you said earlier, we don't just, provide kind of like, hey, we're going to help you with your resume. You can do some practice interviewing. We've got the peer group, but it's also like solidarity as
Right.
well, right? You can kind of like just show up and vent if you need to.
Yes.
Because job seeking is
It's hard.
emotionally taxing.
Hmm.
Yeah. And we acknowledge that and we allow for that because like you have to. We're people for
Right.
crying out loud.
Exactly. Well, and I think it again goes back to that being real and being vulnerable. And you have to have that space that you can be frustrated and people can understand because they're in the same shoes.
Yeah.
Versus if you're talking to somebody who's employed, they can empathize, but they're
Right.
not really able to understand. Um,
Mhm.
you mentioned the 3% conference, and I'm curious, since you've been in the world of helping, women in digital, have you seen an improvement in gender diversity when it comes to those upper roles over the last couple of years, or do you think there's still
Yeah.
plenty of work to do?
I mean, there's still plenty to do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here anymore doing this. I'd probably be off figuring out something else. But unfortunately, I mean, yes and no. Last time I checked, it's hovering for creative directors, it's more in the realm of 12 to 15%. And now when I tell you that 3% jumped from 12 to 15%, I'm only speaking of women, and it's likely white women. We're not
Mhm.
talking about women of color. That
Yeah.
number is even less, or just people of color in general. So, like, again,
Mhm.
still so much to do within the space of diversity for creatives. And that's just,
Mhm.
again, creative directors.
Right.
So, growing people's confidence, growing people's skills, helping people speak about those facts and those numbers, but then also helping them find confidence to apply for the jobs that they don't feel 100% qualified for,
Mhm.
helping them ask for the money that they are worth. Those are the kinds of things and conversations that we do through our master classes, our workshops, our peer groups, you know, all of
Mhm.
those different things that we provide and offer. In fact, I do a one-on-one member onboarding for any new member that'll take me up on it.
Mhm.
Just because one, during the pandemic, we weren't able to meet in person. And so it just seemed like a smart thing to do. And two, we do offer so much value and opportunity for our members between in person and online. It kind of feels overwhelming and then probably
Yeah.
in a good way, but I don't want them to have analysis paralysis. And I would really rather just like greet them at the virtual door and say, "Hi, like, how are
Mhm.
you? And I want to know who you are. I want to know how you got here. I want to know what you need help with so we can kind of
Right.
cut through the clutter because these women are busy. And there is
Mhm.
a gap for women in networking. We don't network as often as men
Mhm.
because we are doing 70% of the household chores still. We're
Mhm.
doing 65% of the childcare at home still.
Mhm.
And we also aren't taught to self promote because it doesn't look good on us. We don't want to be braggy, right? And for so many reasons, there's all these like societal pressures put on to us to not network. Hell, even companies I have heard and seen discouraging their women from networking because they don't want their women to network and then leave their jobs.
Mhm.
Whereas men, it's like, yeah, go out, network. We'll make some new clients. We'll get some
Right.
new vendors. It's great for us. But, it's like, oh, no, if we let those ladies out, and I'm like, "That's so toxic."
Yeah.
It's so wild.
Well, they're also probably the ones that there's a pay gap still to address for people in
Yes,
the same role.
exactly, and most of us have figured this out, obviously, because, we read the articles, we see the numbers, we have a million of these conversations a day. I mean, we've been talking
Mhm.
about this since I don't know when, and so you're 100% right, Rachel. So if I go out and I network, how do I get a raise in my career? How have I ever gotten a raise in my career? I
Right.
move. I leave companies.
Mhm.
Very seldom do we see women get to move up by
Mhm.
staying somewhere.
Right.
Yeah,
I think
it's a
that's
great
also part
point.
of what the society is right now is cost of living raises aren't cutting it. You kind of have to move every,
It's a great
so
point.
often to be able to keep up with the actual
Mhm.
cost of living and the inflation that's happening. Um,
Exactly.
Now, I know you mentioned several unique programs throughout,
Yeah,
but I do want to mention a unique part of the program that I have really enjoyed, and
yeah.
that really is one of the reasons I decided to like become a member.
Mhm.
Is your Ask and Your Give? Could you explain to the
Yes.
viewers a little bit more about that, Amy?
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing it up, and I'm glad that you like it so much. It is something very unique to us. I am a part of other Slack groups, and I'll see like an asks channel and a gives channel, which is great. But I think the way in which we go about it, and I think the way we've talked about the community up to this point too really tells you how and why we're different is that, women specifically, just to generalize, we don't do a lot of asking. We are great at giving when it comes
Mhm.
to our families, our coworkers, our friends. But giving is or to asking is quite a bit harder. So with our asks, we really try to help get our women used to asking more often. So we do this through our Slack channels, our peer groups, and then when we get together at our events in person, which you were privy to be a part of. Now we keep these confidential. That is the name of the game. So anything that is said within those spaces and those places is always kept between us, because that's important. Again, like I said, these safe spaces that we're creating are very, very important. However, what it allows for is for women to ask for what they need without any sense of guilt or shame, and then allows us to give without any judgment. Because I think that's another thing that holds us back, right? Is like, if I ask this, am I going to get judged for it?
Right.
And it holds us back. And I often tell women that asking is kind of like a muscle you have to begin to build up. And so the more times we kind of can give them the space and place to kind of flex that muscle of asking,
Mhm.
the more they get used to it. And the second thing I'll say is that asking is hard. So that's the first step. And the second step is the receiving part. And so the ways in which we go about the asks and gives is really intentional. When we're together in person, we encourage somebody to stand up, which is always hard, and make a vulnerable ask. And then we kind of dig in with some questions to help understand what the ask truly is before we start giving advice. And then we go into advice, and we really try to make sure that what we're giving her is quality. It's our connections, it's our knowledge. We don't power hoard, we don't withhold. Everybody's just so, even within the Slack channel, I don't know if you've ever, like, have you spent much time in there, Rachel, yet, but like the people are like full bulleted lists. They'll put in their calendar links, they'll put in additional links of resources, and it's just wonderful to see how thoughtful. And it's not just like professional asks either, right? There's personal asks that get in there, and sometimes very deeply personal, vulnerable asks. And when those happen, it always feels kind of like awkward at first. But then I always am just so floored at the bravery of our members and attendees when they just step up and do this. And once we kind of shake off the awkward and we get through it, always on the other side of it is, a little bit of tears. I'm always like, it's not a good ask and gives unless there's maybe a little bit of crying. Means we've gotten somewhere good, right? And it's just like, it's really this ability to tap into this collective knowledge and power, and to really kind of leverage that knowledge and power within the room. But then I think the last thing I'll say about the ask and gives that I love is that whenever someone is brave enough to step up and make an ask, for as terrifying as it can be, I guarantee you there's at least 1, 2, even 3 other women in that room, if not more, that had a similar ask, that just couldn't get the courage to stand up. And with you asking, you have given them some help and insight and advice. So the solidarity again is there when people stand up and make those asks. So it's just always awesome to see.
It was really interesting to see that vulnerability. I think as people, as women who love to give, as soon as somebody has the courage to stand up and ask, we're just so excited to help them, because this is like the space we thrive in. And getting that courage to do that ask, which I love that you say it's a muscle, because it's something that I personally need to get better at. Everybody probably does throughout their journey. But now I know you've got a really fun conference coming up, and can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're very excited about it. It is happening on October 17th this year in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where we are headquartered. We have a mass of members within the Midwest, within Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Detroit, but we have got members coming from all over. Members from Phoenix, San Francisco, Austin, DC. Like, I love it. It makes me so proud to know that. I know it's not like the most happening place in the world, although I'm proud of it. Cincinnati, it's like we've got plenty going on. The cool thing about it is that we have kind of paired it up with a event that is happening. It's a biannual event that's been going on for a couple of years now called Blink. It's a huge light and art show that takes over the entire city, and just the over the river as well in northern Kentucky. And so we've been saying you can kind of conference by day and take in some art and light by night. But we've got some really amazing speakers coming to talk about data-driven personalization, the holistic hustle, a woman who is like a former VC backed tech owner who is also now a like certified meditation coach and just a wellness expert, who's also a woman of color, and just really talks about all that intersectionality and the balance of just building and growing yourself and your business while just maintaining your wholeness, which it's like, those are all my love languages right there into one. And then we'll be talking about when giants fall. We're all looking at things like TikTok right now and Google. And oh my gosh, y'all, Microsoft Cloud just crashing this morning and throwing some people's worlds all tizzy. Like, technology, it's such a vital part of our lives, but it is also very volatile. So from a marketer standpoint, we want to talk about some of these big marketing platforms and helping our kind of marketers who also spend a lot of their time being educators, helping their clients, helping their fellow agency or marketing teams know and understand what are the best strategies and approaches when it comes to these bigger kind of platforms and giants that we're spending a lot of time and money marketing on when they become a bit more shaky and volatile, because it's going to
Mhm.
be an interesting year come the fall, especially for folks like TikTok. Um, we may be doing a panel on healthcare and AI for women's equity. I think there's a ton of opportunity
Oh, 100%.
there for health equity with technology and just health equity in general, especially even for people of color there as well. Gosh, yeah. And then we'll be doing our ask and give exchange. Of course, we won't have an event without that, Rachel. So don't worry.
Mhm.
We're actually going to do like a big group example so everybody can kind of see it and have it modeled. And then if you register and you attend, we actually have every single person. You'll fill out a little bit more information than you normally would registering for a conference, but it's like 2 minutes extra and it's well worth your time. But basically, we put everybody, 5 to 10 women, in a group that are similar kind of life and career stage. And so,
Mhm.
introverts, ambiverts, this is for you, my friends. You're not going to be walking into a room full of strangers. You're going to feel so welcomed because
Mhm.
midway through the day, we are going to put you all together into dedicated peer groups. This
Mhm.
is also going to bust up those cliques. It's going to bust up those company bulks that kind of just go and sit
Yeah.
together and give you the chance to deeply and meaningfully connect with some new women. And this is always kind of my favorite part of the day. One, because I get to sit down and just shut up and take it all in. And
Mhm.
two, because you just watch these women sit and it's like that. They are in conversation. And I always tell my photographer, I'm like, this is my favorite part of the day. Go around, look for the listening, look for the engagement, get the shots.
Mhm.
My favorite pictures of the day by far, because just you see it in their faces, the
Mhm.
connection, the joy, the camaraderie, it's all there. And I'm like, that's what I want networking to look like.
Yeah.
That's what I want networking to feel like, because that's real and it's genuine. And we actually do that now before lunch because I was having the hardest time breaking them up.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, just go to lunch together with your new best friends.
Exactly.
And then lastly, I'll say we're also doing a
Mhm.
shopper market that our committee has put together so lovingly, which is going to be a group of all women made, local made products, jewelry, candles,
Mhm.
crystals, you name it, that you can come and shop and support some local owned women businesses as well. So yeah, it's going to be such a awesome fulfilling day and energizing day. It's not going to be the kind of like conference you go to and you're like, you feel like your head's so full. You're going to have new knowledge,
Yeah.
you're going to have new expertise to take back to your team, but you're not going to feel like your head's going to explode.
Mhm. And then you have to sort through all of your notes afterwards to figure out what actually you can implement. Um,
Yes.
Now, I am not somebody who is in digital marketing, or I'm a sales human, but
Yeah.
I am a small business owner and I am attempting to learn the marketing world. And I will say that the master classes and the things that you've offered are very relevant. So
Mhm.
I would say to our audience that it's not just digital marketers that get to be a part of your
Yeah,
group or that you want to attend the conference. It's also small business owners that are trying to
absolutely.
figure this out as well, because we're all on a journey to figure out how we attract clients and the people that we want to work with. Um,
Yeah.
so that I just wanted to
Mhm.
throw that out there in case anybody's like, "This is great," but I'm not in
Good
marketing.
call.
Um, to
Don't,
wrap
yeah, please don't exclude yourself. I agree.
Yeah. To kind of wrap this up, is there a transformational story that you can think of or a success story of somebody that has come
Mhm.
through and been a part of the network outside of yourself? Because you are a success story in my mind.
Yeah.
But just an example of somebody who Together Digital has really impacted in their life.
Oh, I can think of so many, but yeah, to think of, I'm gonna give you two quick, one past and one current. One past one that my favorite story of like salary raise to tell
Mhm.
is, if we want to just talk money, since you're sales gal, we like to talk numbers sometimes, right? We had one member who got some advice through her peer group and through an ask and give. She said that I happened to overhear what my coworker was getting in salary, and we went to the same college, graduated the same year, went to two different companies for a couple of years, ended up back at the same company working
Mhm.
on the same like team ish, same role but different clients. and she just didn't know how to address it with her boss. And so they gave her some kind of good advice to basically how to breach the topic with her boss and not to come out and say, like, this is exactly what I heard and it was this much. She's like,
Yeah.
I would just like this to be looked into. I
Right.
would like to know. And, not in like an aggressive, as they would deem it for a woman, aggressive way.
Yes. Because we can't
Um,
have emotions or ask questions without having it being
right.
labeled as,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
angry
Construed.
or,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And boss was like, yeah, sure. Let me look into that. Comes back. She got a $60,000 a year
Ooh,
raise. Not
that's amazing.
16, 60, and then 3 more zeros. $60,000 a year. That's
Wild.
the difference in the amount of money that she was making from her male counterpart who went to the same college, got the same degree with the same years of experience at the same company doing the same role.
It's wild.
Explain it to me why. So
Right.
anyhow, that was huge. And then the more recent one, and if you come to the conference you'll get to hear the story firsthand with this wonderful beautiful member next that you interviewed last. I think maybe you've had somebody in between us, but
Mhm.
Meredith out of Phoenix joined us, I guess,
Yes.
I mean, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. And, just really just clicked within the group right away in the sense of like not click, but like just really felt like she
Mhm.
synced with a lot of the people. She understood the mission and the values and the authenticity. And I knew she hadn't been in like some good places in her past work environments. And she wanted to do something of her own, but she just wasn't super confident
Mhm.
about it. And she joined our entrepreneur solopreneur group and started to connect more deeply with some of those women, had some transparent conversations about what rates looked like, what contracts looked like, what getting clients looked and sounded like. And, she's brilliant. She's so wicked smart. And, no reason in the world why she shouldn't, other than I think just a little bit of confidence, quite honestly.
Right.
And that was it. She just kind of found her people, found her confidence, got the nudges that she needed from the support system around her and from some of the community members as well, and stepped out into that. And then fast forward, to like a couple weeks ago, she like calls me up or we get on the phone call together, me, her, and one of the committee members for the planning group, and she tells me she wants to sponsor our national conference happy hour. I
That's
was like,
amazing.
I know. I was like, Meredith, honey, I'm like, you're just starting a new business. I was like, you got a
Yeah.
lot going on. She's like, I know, but like, here's my plan. She's like, this is what I want to do, and this is why I want to sponsor it. And so
Right.
she's telling me this story about, obviously, this is why I joined. And then
Right.
I was thinking I would do this, but then I got the courage to do that. Now I have this business. And I want to invite, like, I want to put a invitation into every swag bag and personally invite everybody to this like cheers to community thing. And I just want to do a toast to this community and all that it's given me. And I'm like, so she's flying from Phoenix to Cincinnati. She's sponsoring the happy hour. And I was just like, I was just trying not to cry. I was like, this is amazing. And so, she's such like, I have no doubt she's going to do such great things.
Mhm.
And I just love that, like, what you put out into the world. It's just when it comes back to you in such a way, um, it was really awesome. It was really awesome. It was so very unexpected. I was quite
Mhm.
floored by that. Well, and then I will say, then not only that, but then two other members that own businesses came and were like, "Hey, can we?" So we're like, sponsors, if you're interested, y'all need to hurry up because we have a few other
Exactly.
companies that we're talking to as well. But like, we're nearly sold out of
Mhm.
sponsorships as well, which is amazing.
Mhm.
Because between some of the bigger companies and then our member owned businesses that are wanting to support this community and this group and this event, I don't, if that's not success, I don't know what is. Like, it's
Mhm.
just beautiful. It's amazing. And I couldn't be more proud of them and what they're doing. I just love creating the space and then watching
Mhm.
them go off into the world and shine. And I usually don't, I mean, I really don't expect anything else in return, but to get
Mhm.
that back, to be able to create an even bigger, better experience for them the day of the conference. It's going to be
That's
amazing.
exciting. Well, Amy, thank you so much for joining today.
Absolutely.
What I will say about having to get to know you over the past couple of weeks, month or so, however long I've been a part of this, is that I just think that you radiate this kindness and this energy of like people can tell that you are very genuine that in your journey to help women, people of minority get more exposure and get help and create this community of that just vulnerability and kindness. And I think that's really unique. So I will post all of the links to the conference, to the website down below. And as people have questions, please put them in there and we'll go through and answer them. But I really appreciated that you came on with me today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime. Like I said, I mean, it's just when you're doing what you love, you can't really hide it. And it's an honor and a privilege to be able to, for all the things the community gave me throughout my time as a member, all of this is just going back and giving it back in return. So I'm happy to do it.
Thanks. Perfect. Well, have a lovely day, everybody.